Going on with inversion. We want to bring in my next guest to talk more about this, and he is John Catsimatidis. He's chairman and CEO of Red Apple Group. Jerry Baker, the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal, is with me as well. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for joining the conversation.
Well, thank you for having me.
So what's your take on tax inversion?
It's now a world market. It's no longer a isolated market, and the unions didn't learn that in the 1990s, where we had reform to do more business overseas with our companies, whether it was General Motors, whether it was General Electric, where we moved jobs overseas. So what the unions should have done at that point is bring their rates down and become more competitive. Well, it's now one big world market, and our country has to realize that you can't hold companies prisoner. You can pass all the laws you want. It's not going to help. Eventually, companies will learn how to avoid them.
Right.
And
under, we should say, the legalities of the structure. I mean, Jerry, you know, let's face it, money is mobile. It will go where it's treated best.
Well, the core problem here is that U.S. corporate tax rates are so high. I mean, some of the highest rates in the world, creating incredible distortions and disincentives in the system, in the global system. So you have these inversions, more and more companies, you know, acquiring companies overseas so they can essentially relocate their headquarters so that they can avoid, perfectly legally, avoid U.S. taxes. You have also this phenomenon of companies keeping money overseas. That money that they earn overseas, they're not going to bring back to the United States because it gets actually double taxed in effect. They're paying a lower tax rate in the country where they earned the money. They don't want to bring it back here and be forced to pay the much higher tax rate that they're paid here.
By the way, they have employees in the place overseas.
Yeah, they have employees over there. They have employees over here. And of course they would invest more in the United States if they were to bring their cash back. I mean, you see this all the time, and people, you know, get upset about Apple, you know, paying a low tax rate in Ireland. Well, you know, why shouldn't they do that? And if the U.S. tax rate were actually, you know, competitive with those other countries, not only would it mean that, you know, say you wouldn't have this issue of inversions, you'd have companies bringing their money back into the U.S., investing in the U.S., investing in jobs here. It's, you know, clearly the Congress and the White House have got to get together. And look, there's a desire for corporate tax reform. Everybody acknowledges it's necessary, but nobody seems to be able to get it done.
And the will to get it done has been really difficult because everybody has their own ideologies, John.
Well, I agree. You know, we can get $2 trillion moved from overseas to the United States if Congress applied an incentive, bring your money back, invest it, build new factories. One of the biggest problems that Yellen spoke about when at her first luncheon in New York was people are investing over the next 5-year period in the United States, companies. We used to be able to invest over 20 years, over 30 years. Let's build a new factory. Let's build. Nobody's doing that. We're doing long-term to American companies is 5 years, and it's wrong. And the only way we're going to keep our economy going and our country going is by getting a smarter people in Washington that are going to do something about it.
Do you see an impact to, for example, Gristedes, to Red Apple, if in fact Walgreens picks up and moves its headquarters to the UK after acquiring Boots?
Well, if their effective taxation is half, and instead of paying $4 billion a year in taxes, they're only paying $2 billion. Then
that's a competitive disadvantage for you.
That's a competitive disadvantage for all American companies.
And that's what's happening. This is what's really now driving this. There's been this kind of momentum now behind these inversions because so many companies, you know, like John's, are kind of looking and thinking. I mean, up to now, it's been you know, heavily concentrated, especially recently in things like the pharmaceutical sector. Companies with big global sales where most of their sales are overseas. So it kind of, you know, it's less controversial there. When a company like Walgreens, a big U.S. domestic retailer, decides to do it, then it's going to make John and his companies think about what they're doing. It's going to make other retailers think, actually, maybe we should be doing this. Maybe that kind of, when it gets to that level of momentum, that will force Congress to do something.
Well, we buy all our oil in Canada. Well, maybe we should have Canadian company buying the oil, making the profits in Canada, and then shipping it to our United States company. You know, that's what it's going to come down to.
All new options come up on the table when you see competitors doing things that are obviously much more advantageous for them. This is all global. This is all, you know, money's mobile, and this is all about competitive advantages. All right, stay right